Hi folks, welcome back to the table. I'm Kim Ganassin. Today I want to let you in on some insights that I've had in the last, 6 months or a year in working with clients doing readings and vibrational entrainment therapy one-on-one. Okay, there's a pattern that I've seen, and it's really relevant to all of us, but it's especially relevant if you're looking to become more lucid in your 4D and 5D aspects of consciousness, and perhaps anticipating evolving and expanding into your 5D consciousness right here on the planet. The shift, right? We've been talking about the shift. Okay, so here's an insight into a real life way that your 4D aspect of consciousness is really relevant right now in what you're doing. Okay, so this is the pattern that I've been seeing in some of my clients, and it's important. All right, you've got your 3D self, right? My client's 3D self, my 3D self. And then one step up your spectrum of consciousness, you have your 4D aspect of consciousness. And then a step above that, you have your 5D aspect of consciousness. Okay? The other side, when we talk about the other side, right? That's a 5D context, right? Okay, so I mostly do readings for people in the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions of their consciousness or the consciousness of somebody else that they might be asking me about. Okay, so I'm always looking at these three levels, whether I'm doing vibrational entrainment or a reading for them. Okay? So, obviously we know what your 3D aspect is doing. You're on the planet, role-playing, living out a hopefully glorious and beautiful and, sacred life in 3D on the earth. Your 4D aspect of consciousness is just one step above 3D, okay? It is very much interested in what is happening in your 3D life. It's very connected to your 3D level of consciousness. The only thing that's different about 4D is that it has a little bit broader perspective of everything going on in your 3D life, and it also connects you to your 4D aspect of consciousness, your 5D aspect of consciousness. It connects you to that and creates this unbroken sort of bridge between you in 3D and your 5D aspect on the other side, so that you can experience somehow deep within yourself a connection to your 5D aspect, which is where your inspiration and a lot of your power comes from, your 5D, right? So that's what 4D is. It is a bridge connecting 3D to 5D, and it's also a place where you can hang out and get a broader perspective of what's going on in your life in 3D. Okay, so what I've been seeing a lot of lately is that when I tap people in their 4D, hey, Joe, I'm talking to you on the phone in 3D, and as a channel, I'm now tapping you in 4D. Can you show up and have a conversation with me, and I'll interpret to your 3D self what's going on in 4D? Well, most of the time, I'll be able to tap somebody in 4D, and they show up and they start talking. Okay? I can do the same for 5D. I'm on the phone with Joe. Joe, hey, we caught you in 4D. What's going on in your 5D? 5D shows up, says, here I am. And usually they show up on the other side and wave at me. Hey, I'm waving at you from 5D. Okay? What I've seen a lot of lately is that 4D doesn't show up. Your 4D aspect might not show up. And I've observed and I've taken notes on it, and what's up with people's 4D aspect not showing up. And this is what has been shown to be a true phenomenon. Some people who are pretty well identified and wrapped up with 3D, they've drawn their 4D aspect into their 3D life. How does that work? Well, the 4D aspect gets convinced that it's supposed to live out its conscious life with you in 3D. And that's not a good thing, right? That's not a good thing. That means that 4D can't do its job of bridging you to your 5D, right? Information and, support, energy, connection, it's all supposed to be an unbroken spectrum. But what happens is, for some people, they get really stressed out in 3D, they get really traumatized perhaps, and some people just end up that their 4D aspect gets drawn into that anxiety, that fear, that trauma, right? And it becomes part of their 3D aspect. Now, I can tell when there's a little bit of 4D consciousness mixed in with somebody's 3D. When I'm talking to somebody and they're asking me to do a reading for them, and I hear them, doing all this, 3D expressing, right? Expressing of 3D experience, I can tap them vibrationally, and I can go, wait a minute, I think 4D's in there too. And I'll try to tap them in their 4D spectrum. I'll try to tap their 4D aspect as though it was part of that continuous spectrum bridging 3D to 5D. And if they don't show up there, but I feel a little bit of that 4D perspective in their 3D as they're talking, then I know that they are going to have a problem receiving support and intuition and inspiration from their 5D. And it's important to have that. It's important to have that. Now, the people that tend to have their 4D aspect wrapped up, really just adding fuel to this bonfire of anxiety and stress and fear, perhaps sadness, perhaps PTSD, all kinds of different things that can happen in 3D. I need to be able to help them pull those things apart so that 4D can go back to being the bridge between the two. These people in 3D that are sort of vulnerable to this blending of 3D and 4D, they tend to be people that suffer from not being able to feel within themselves that they're connected to something higher. We all know people like this. We all know people like this. And this is just a generalization. Just a generalization. Okay? But a lot of people who are in this condition of having their 4D and 3D all wrapped up in their 3D life, they have a tendency to really talk about their cognition rather than their feelings, right? They are primarily thinkers, not so much feelers. And sometimes when I'm talking to them, doing a reading, doing some kind of a consult with them, I'll say, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? I'm trying to get them to tell me what they feel. And their answer is always, well, I know that this and this and this. I'm like, okay, that's not a feeling. Well, I think this and this and this, and I assume this and this and this. I'm like, what are you feeling? What do you feel on the inside? They can't really say it. They can't really say it because they're primarily invested in knowing through cognition, and that's not really knowing, right? Knowing and feeling, from the perspective of the work that I do, are kind of the same thing, right? You know through feeling. Your 5D aspect becomes evident to you that it exists through a feeling. Okay, so being connected to your 5D aspect because your 4D is healthy and not confused that it's part of 3D, and it's over here creating that unbroken line, that unbroken communication link between your 5D and your 3D. If it's sitting there doing that, you're going to experience a feeling of yourself and not just a concept of yourself. Okay? So think about that. Think about that. Think about whether or not you can feel anything on the inside that says, you know, I am bigger than this 3D. I'm bigger than this 3D, and I feel it rather than knowing it. Now, you might ask, and I do too sometimes, if I'm getting people calling me up and wanting a reading or wanting vibrational entrainment therapy, and some of these people are disconnected from their 4D and suffering from being in a condition where they don't necessarily feel the connection, how is that type of person going to be interested in talking to me and getting a reading, getting some one-on-one vibrational entrainment therapy? If they don't feel it and they don't believe it, how is it that they're coming to me? Well, I think that some people do realize that there is a piece missing. They can kind of see it or feel it or sense it somewhere in their background, right? It's something in the background, playing in the background for them, but they can't identify it within themselves, and they call me up. And so what I do for people like this is, first of all, diagnose it, right, in a session. And then if we're doing vibrational entrainment therapy and the time frame that we've booked is long enough, I can go in there and I can do different things like call on their 5D aspect. Hey, 5D aspect, can you get involved in helping me pull 4D aspect of consciousness out of 3D and get it reoriented to 4D so that we can have that unbroken thread, right? That unbroken spectrum, and this person will benefit from it in 3D as an individual, right? They can psychologically, emotionally benefit from it, and it will help them to feel within themselves what 5D is. They can feel it from over there because now the line is unbroken, right? So they can start to feel it. And then when I start talking about, you know, shifting to 5D and tenets of culture that we're going to be adopting in order to begin to vibrate like 5D compatible beings, they start to get it. Yeah, okay, no, I get what you're saying now. I can kind of feel it. I can feel myself connected to that to some extent, and I'm ready to move forward and start pursuing, expanding in that direction. How about that? I know a lot of people want to feel that connection, so I'm just putting it out there. I know why it happens. I see where the glitch is in 4D, right? It's all wrapped up in 3D and stressing and going and having a three-dimensional experience when they're really supposed to be having a fourth-dimensional experience. I can work with that through readings and vibrational entrainment, and often in 1 or 2 sessions. Okay? So I want to thank you for being here. I hope this information has been helpful for you. I feel like it's really important for those people who are looking for that real, you know, personally tangible sense that they are connected up and down their spectrum, and that they have a real sense of inspiration for how to get where they want to go. All right? Well, take care. Leave your questions and comments. Also on my channel is my contact information. And remember, don't forget, if this kind of thing interests you, if you want to get involved in vibrational entrainment without having one-on-one, check me out on Patreon. I'm going to put my Patreon information in the description just below this video. Okay? Take care. See you next time.